So I'm going to turn you over to our host for this afternoon. His name is Chris, and he loves film. Take it away, Chris.
All right. So, like your film, I loved it, and what I really liked about it was, it's a sci-fi film, obviously, but you don't really see often in a short film, especially where there's not really any special effects or big set pieces. So I thought it was a really interesting angle to show just like the drama and the character relations. So maybe you could speak on that decision to approach the sci-fi genre from that angle.
For sure. This is Sam here. I produced the film and also acted in it. Holly and I, and Alex, we all worked together at a marketing firm. And it was just one day randomly while we were walking where we read about the first ever image of a black hole that was taken. And immediately as a storyteller, I thought we should make a film set in this world where the potentiality of a black hole swallowing it up was about to occur. And from there, we just started thinking of ideas. As a lifelong sci-fi fan, I wanted to, they had to pull me back and forth because I was like, let's go big. But obviously the characters and the subtlety of what's happening is what's truly important about this story. It's not so much, we don't even really consider it a sci-fi movie ourselves. It's more of just a character piece set in the world where this catastrophic event is happening. So really we went at it from the angle and we started to explore just little scenarios or storylines that we thought would be interesting to see. And really the focus is how would people spend their last days on Earth?
All right, fair enough. And especially in a short film, you don't really see like a big ensemble cast like this. So how did you manage that? How did you go about weaving all that together and whatnot?
Sure, even myself acting in it, I actually have 5 brothers, and there are 3 O'Connell boys in the picture, self-included. So that was a no-brainer, and they didn't really have a choice in the matter. But I think they did pretty well. But other than that, we went through the typical audition process, and like I said earlier, it really came down to selecting the storylines that we were going to portray, and from there, it was making individual outreach. We have a really strong theater community here in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So based on seeing plays and the interacting in the circles there, we were able to hand select some actors and actresses. And other than that, we just did, auditions and whatnot.
Yeah. And were there any like challenges that you didn't see coming? Obviously there was, so maybe you could speak about that.
I mean, there is the obvious challenge of, we do work full-time jobs and, a kind of film adjacent field. So we were really sort of stretched thin on all the different things that we were working on simultaneously. So when it came to production, a lot of the filming days, it was kind of do or die. You have actors for, 1 weekend, and we were really fortunate with, how the weather worked out with production. There was actually, we've talked about this, internally about the last scene. We were planning on like, how could we kind of make it look like there's a storm going on, as if, the world was being destroyed. And luckily an insane storm happened like the second we got onto that location. And it just so happened that we were able to wrap everything up just before it completely downpoured. So we got that cool gray sky and, some nice wind, but yeah.
I think another challenge is just some of the cast were non-actors, and they were just kind of thrust into the roles themselves, and getting those heartfelt performances, because we only had a few minutes to tell a storyline, or to tell these 4 storylines with a cast of over 10 people. So making the audience care about these people who didn't necessarily have a big acting background was something that was really important. It was make or break for us.
And where did you find that newborn baby for that scene? That just seemed like perfect.
So that was actually within the family. My stepbrother had just had a baby boy about 5 days before we were shooting that day.
We were gonna do the American Sniper and have a little baby doll, but it just so worked out. Yeah.
There's actually an odd pregnancy through line in that entire production. Actually, another one of our locations that we were filming at, it was a family friend of Sam's, and she was actually 9 months pregnant, and they had left the house for the day. I forget. I think they were going to their parents or something, and then when they came back after the day of shooting, she went into labor that same day. So it was like this whole production has been like pregnancy riddled.
I say that we maybe stressed her out and caused maybe induced her a little bit from what we were doing to her home, but that's just me.
And where did you guys film this? Because it's mostly outdoors and there's a lot of like beautiful shots, beautiful scenery. So where was this?
Yeah, we're fortunate to be born and raised in northeastern Pennsylvania, which has just incredible landscapes. So we don't have to drive too far in any direction to find the locations that we ended up filming at.
That's why we like to be here. Is right now we're in Wilkes-Barre, which is a city. But if you drive 20 minutes in either direction, you'll find a lake, you'll find really dense forests, or really beautiful towns and cities.
And what were your inspirations for creating this? Did you seek from any other movies or projects or stories or anything like that? Or
it was an interesting blend, as Sam mentioned earlier, being inspired originally from seeing the first ever picture of a black hole. And then I know for me, it was internally digging, just personalized stories. There's the storyline between myself and then Eve, the young female who was pregnant. And to me, that was my sister in a lot of ways, who's had 4 children. And so for me, it was more internal. You had your brothers.
For sure.
Yeah.
As filmmakers and team members, I always try to incorporate stories of brotherhood because, like I said, I have 5 brothers in real life, and those are stories that I know. So truthfully, our inspiration for most of it, apart from just being film lovers in general, was just good stories of people that we do know and interact with on a daily basis. Alex wrote it based on just kind of all these stories that we were just tossing out.
And since it is many different characters, when you were filming it, did you know when you're going to cut back and forth? Is that in the script, or was it sort of just like seeing what works and what fits and whatever?
We had a pretty intense pre-production phase where we did storyboard out the whole thing, and we had a pretty good idea going into it when we would be cutting back and forth, but based on what we did capture on the day and just some performances, we ended up cutting some things here and rearranging and to get where we were at, to make sure that we didn't show one storyline too much, one storyline too little, and we feel like it kind of all comes together at the end in a perfect way.
And a lot of the characters, they have like really good chemistry, like the couple and the family. So how did they get to know each other before? Like, was there a lot of like bonding or whatever before? Because it just seems so natural on the screen.
Well, we did, like we said, we do have a theater community that we pull from a lot, and so a few of there's the scenes where there's the group that's out in the woods and they're sort of sitting around the fire. A lot of those guys actually did know each other, but we also were lucky enough to kind of build in time to have some some rehearsal time. We have a great facility here that we were able to kind of have for a couple of days and just block everything out, and they got to know each other, and it was really, really helpful.
I had the privilege of acting alongside my brother, so we have a lifetime of chemistry built up or non-chemistry, depending on the scenario.
All right. Well, that makes up all of the questions that I had.
Yep, we have a couple of questions. Have you worked with Alan O'Brien Sherry and Jason Sherry before on other projects?
She was one who we kind of handpicked. We didn't have auditions for that role. We reached out to her to see if she was interested, just from knowing her from the community. I had a film that showcased at the NEPA Film Festival here a few years ago, where I had the privilege of meeting Jason and Ellen, and they were just such good people and such good energy, and they were so passionate about film in the area. So apart from meeting her there, I didn't know her otherwise, and while we were writing this part, we reached out to her and she graciously accepted. It was really wonderful to have her in it. She brought so much passion and energy and talent to that role, and we really care about the mother and son interaction. And for us, that's kind of when she's standing there with Dave, the child, and they're looking out at the field. For me personally, that's kind of a turning point in the story where things start to pick up pace and you start going towards the end.
Holly, why this film as your first film? And tell us a little bit about your voice in film from a female perspective, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually feel like this is a pretty easy answer, and I'm not trying to sound too corny or cliche, but it has a lot to do with the two people sitting right next to me. Not only are we collaborative partners day to day at our day job and on this film, but they're my best friends here in Wilkes-Barre. So to just be inspired by them. This is really transparently their, I would say, lifelong dreams and whatnot, which is absolutely incredible. And I had met them just about 3 or 4 years ago and really got into the world of filmmaking and this just this creative path. But it was them, it was their support. There were a lot of times where I didn't even truly feel like I should have had the director title, but just because of their support and their encouragement, I was able to step into that role fully for the first time. And I'm really proud of that. So I guess to answer the second half of that question of, my own voice and whatnot, if you guys are okay with me just making note of, we are moving forward. We have established a production company and there are things that we are exploring together now and different conversations that we're in to really just pursue this and hopefully make it something that we can continue doing together more long term.
If I could just speak to on how part of the inception of the idea was that the engineer behind the first photo ever taken of Blackhole was a young female engineer, which was really inspiring. And it just, as we were talking about who should write this, and Holly, has her finger on the pulse of people's emotions and how people react to things. It just felt like a really good fit.
Thanks.
Why is there a period at the end of the title?
So we went back and forth about this a little bit, but I feel like I don't want to give the wrong answer.
I think it's just the end of everything,
The period is, it ends the sentence, it ends the story. It's whole. There's a couple different reasons, but the primary one being that it is the end.
We see references to melancholia and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Have either of these films played a role in the overall aesthetic and the storyline?
We actually, we hadn't seen, either one. We actually, as we were going into production, somebody we received a comment that was like, this is have you guys checked out Melancholia? And it was like, oh, I haven't, and then we looked it up and then we're like, oh man, I hope, we actually, once we kind of read the log line, we kind of stayed away from it to make sure that, it wasn't too, if it were similar or anything. I still actually haven't seen it. I should check it out.
We should.
I've heard it's good. And then truly, the transparent answer there is Close Encounters. I think I own it on DVD. I have not seen it.
What have you learned about yourself making this film?
It's a great question.
Personally, we've tried to do other projects, and one thing that I learned is there's a great amount of power in the team that is sitting here, and I've never relied on a team so much as a collaborative project, and that's something I'll remember forever. Alex and I have collaborated on other short films, and prior to doing this, we were working on a TV pilot, and truly the difference was that we didn't have Holly involved. There was a difference between making it or not making it. So our team here is really strong, and that's personally.
Yeah, I think I would even just to continue on that is I am one of those women that I'm going to get it done and I'm going to try to do on my own. But it was so rewarding to be able to do this alongside all of you, both of you, and then just the entire ensemble and everybody else that we were able to pull in, and just the community members far and wide that came out of the woodwork to make it possible. I can't say enough that I can't wait for the next one. I know we're working on pitches and things like that, but I was like, but can we just squeeze in, maybe making one of the pilots or something? Because it's so rewarding and just so inspiring.
Basically, that last thing that Holly touched on was, I think even, Sam and I both in the past, a lot of times working on things, we both have a really natural inclination to try and just completely, bury yourself in, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. It is, I think I really did learn a lot about, what is possible if you do reach out to the community. We raised funding, locally. We really got a lot of help from the community, and it changed everything for us. So yeah, I think that's it.
I think my last thought here is, this is actually our first film festival that we are being shown at, and it's our first Q&A, so really appreciate this and appreciate your guys' questions. So it's been a really wonderful experience, another learning experience. And actually 1 year ago today, we launched our Kickstarter for Blackhole, and we were about to enter into production. So it's kind of fell on a cool day.